The massive crystal towers of Nexus Prime reached toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Ambassador Kang Wu-jin stepped off the human transport ship and felt the strange energy of the place wash over him. Everything here was perfect. Too perfect. The pathways were exactly the right width. The buildings stood at precise angles. Even the air seemed to move in careful patterns. Wu-jin had been Earth's top diplomat for 20 years, but this was his first time on the galaxy's capital world. For 50 years, humanity had been watched from afar. Other alien races had visited Earth, traded with human colonies, and studied human behavior. But no human had ever been invited to the Galactic Harmony Council before today. Ambassador Wu-jin, a smooth voice spoke behind him. He turned to see a tall, glowing figure approaching. The being looked like it was made of starlight wrapped in silk. "I am Chancellor Velthara of the Luminari. Welcome to Nexus Prime." Wu-jin bowed slightly, as was human custom. "Thank you for the invitation, Chancellor. This is a great honor for humanity." Velthara's face showed no emotion. Her eyes were like distant stars, beautiful but cold. "Come, the council awaits your arrival." As they walked through the crystal city, Wu-jin noticed something strange. Every alien he saw moved in the same careful way. Their steps were measured. Their voices had the same calm tone. When groups gathered, they stood in perfect circles or lines. It was like watching a dance where everyone knew the exact same steps. "Your people seem very organized," Wu-jin said carefully. "We follow the convergence protocol," Velthara replied. "It brings harmony to all aspects of life. No conflict, no waste, no chaos. Perfect balance." They entered an enormous hall where representatives from dozens of alien races sat in perfect rows. Each species looked different. Some were insect-like with many arms, others were made of flowing water, and some seemed to be living rocks. But they all sat the same way, spoke the same way, and looked at Wu-jin with the same empty calm. At the center of the hall stood a massive insect creature with a crown of sharp spines. "I am Hive Queen Zektith," she announced, her voice echoing strangely. "We have observed humanity for 50 of your years. Today we offer you the greatest gift in the galaxy, the chance to join the Convergence Protocol." Wu-jin looked around the hall. "What exactly is this protocol?" "It is the end of suffering," said a being that looked like living stone. "The end of war, anger, sadness, and fear. No more fighting over resources," added a creature made of shifting water. "No more disagreements that lead to violence. No more chaos," finished Velthara. "Your people will find perfect peace." Wu-jin felt a chill run down his spine. "And how does this protocol work?" Zektith's compound eyes glittered. "Simple neural adjustment. Your brain patterns will be improved, made efficient. All humans will think and act in harmony with galactic civilization." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Park Dong-hyuk was having his own encounter with harmonized species. His exploration ship, Terra's Will, had stopped at the water world of Deep Tide to trade for rare minerals. "This is strange, Captain," said his science officer, Dr. Kim So-young, as they walked through the alien city. "I studied the Deep Tide people before we came here. Their historical records show they were once famous for incredible art, music, and poetry. They were passionate, emotional, creative." Dong-hyuk watched a group of the aquatic aliens working together to build a sculpture. They moved in perfect time with each other, their 6 arms flowing in identical patterns. The sculpture they created was technically perfect, every line precise, every angle exact. But it looked exactly like 50 other sculptures they had passed. "What happened to them?" Dong-hyuk asked. "According to their own records, they joined something called the Convergence Protocol about 30 years ago," So-young replied, checking her data pad. "They say it brought them peace and harmony. An aquatic alien approached them, its movements smooth and controlled. "Greetings, humans. I am Flowing Current, designated speaker for this sector. How may we assist you?" "We're here to trade," Dong-hyuk said. "But I'm curious about your art. We've heard your people were once great artists." "That was before we found harmony," Flowing Current replied without emotion. "Art caused arguments. Different opinions led to conflict. Now we create only what is needed in the most efficient way." So-young stepped forward. "But don't you miss the creativity? The individual expression?" "Individual expression is inefficient," Flowing Current said. "It leads to waste and disagreement. The protocol has freed us from such burdens." Back on Nexus Prime, Wu-jin was hearing similar words from the Galactic Council. But something deep inside him rebelled against what he was hearing. "What if we refuse?" he asked quietly. The hall fell completely silent. Zektith's antennae twitched. "Refuse? What if humanity chooses to remain as we are?" Velthara's glowing form seemed to dim slightly. "That would be unfortunate. Species that refuse the protocol cannot be trusted. They bring chaos and conflict wherever they go. They must be contained." "Contained? Isolated," said the stone being. "No trade, no contact, no access to galactic civilization. Your colonies would be cut off," added the water creature. "Your ships would not be allowed in civilized space." Wujin felt the weight of the entire galaxy pressing down on him. 50 years of careful diplomacy, of building relationships with alien races, of expanding human territory among the stars. All of it could disappear with his next words. He thought about Earth, about the messy, chaotic, beautiful world where humans argued and fought and created and loved and dreamed. He thought about human children playing in parks, not in perfect lines but in wild, unpredictable games. He thought about human artists creating works that made no logical sense but touched the soul. He thought about human explorers like Dong Hyuk, driven by curiosity to see what was beyond the next star. "I need to contact my government," Wujin said finally. "Of course," Zektith replied, "but do not take too long. The offer of harmony will not remain open forever." 3 days later, Wujin stood before the council again. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. Behind him, he could feel the weight of human history. All the struggles, all the failures, all the glorious, messy attempts to be something more than just efficient. "The United Earth government has considered your generous offer," he began. His voice was clear and strong. "We thank you for your invitation to join the Convergence Protocol." The council leaned forward slightly, waiting. However, Wujin continued, "Humanity must respectfully decline. We choose to remain beautifully, chaotically human." The silence that followed was like the moment before a storm breaks. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks after Ambassador Wujin returned to Earth. Commander Lee Hyunwoo was bringing medical supplies to the farming colony on New Busan when his communications officer looked up with worry in her eyes. "Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies. Trade ships are being turned away at the border checkpoints. The Luminari are saying all human vessels are now considered high risk for contamination." Hyunwoo frowned as he studied the star charts. New Busan was having crop failures this season. Without the specialized fertilizers from the mineral ring worlds, thousands of colonists would face starvation. "What kind of contamination?" "They're calling it chaos syndrome," his engineer, Choi Min-soo, said from his workstation. "Apparently, contact with humans can cause harmony disruption in other species." Dr. Jung Yuna, the ship's medical officer, laughed bitterly. "Chaos syndrome? They're treating human nature like a disease." As their ship, the Steady Hope, approached New Busan's orbital station, they found something that made Hyunwoo's blood run cold. 3 massive alien ships floated in space around the planet. Their sleek, identical designs marked them as Convergence Protocol vessels. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. The main screen lit up with the image of a tall, crystalline being. Its face was smooth and featureless except for 2 glowing points where eyes might be. "Human vessel, you are entering a containment zone. Turn back immediately." "This is Commander Lee Hyunwoo of the Earth vessel Steady Hope," he replied, keeping his voice steady. "We're bringing medical supplies to New Busan colony. These people are starving." "New Busan has been offered integration into the Convergence Protocol," the alien replied without emotion. "Once they accept harmony, all their needs will be provided for. Until then, no outside contamination is permitted." "Contamination?" Hyunwoo's temper flared. "We're bringing food to hungry people." "You are bringing chaos. Turn back or be destroyed." Down on New Busan, colony leader Park Jinhee watched the ships in orbit through her office window. Her people were already on half rations. The children were getting thin. The elderly were growing weak. But every day the convergent ships broadcast the same message to the planet. "Accept the protocol," the smooth voice would say. "End your suffering. Join galactic harmony. Your pain will disappear. Your worries will cease. You will know perfect peace." Some colonists were starting to listen. A group led by former teacher Bae Dong-il had begun meeting in secret, calling themselves the New Harmony Movement. They argued that joining the protocol was the only way to save their children. "Look at us," Dong-il would say to anyone who would listen. "We're dying because we're too stubborn to accept help. The galaxy is offering us a solution and we're rejecting it out of pride." But Park Jin-ae remembered what the galaxy's solution had done to other species. She had met traders from the deep tide worlds before the protocol. They had been vibrant, creative, passionate people. Now they were like living machines, efficient but empty. On Earth, President Yoon Tae-ho faced his own crisis. In the capital city, protesters gathered every day outside the government buildings. Half demanded that Earth stand firm against galactic pressure. The other half begged for acceptance into the protocol. "Dad, you have to listen to reason," his daughter Yoon Ji-won pleaded during a private family dinner. At 25, she was already one of Earth's most promising young diplomats. "The galaxy has thousands of species. We're just one. We can't fight them all." President Yoon looked tired. The weight of leading humanity through its greatest crisis was showing on his face.
"And if we give in?"
"If we let them change us into something else, then we survive," Ji-won said. "A living human who follows the protocol is better than a dead human who fought for freedom." "Is it?" asked her father quietly. "Is a human without free will still human?" The debate raged not just in the president's home, but across Earth and all the human colonies. On Mars, riots broke out between pro-protocol and free human groups. On the mining stations around Jupiter, workers went on strike, demanding their government stop this madness and accept galactic civilization. Back in space, Commander Hyun-woo made a decision that would change everything. "Min-soo, can you get us past those ships?" His engineer grinned. "I've been studying their patrol patterns for the last hour. They move in perfect formation, completely predictable. If we approach from the shadow of the moon and cut power at just the right moment, do it." The Steady Hope drifted silently through space, using the moon's gravity to slingshot toward New Busan. The convergence ships, following their precise patrol routes, never looked in the right direction at the right time. They almost made it. "Human vessel detected," came the cold announcement as they reached the planet's atmosphere. "You have violated containment. Prepare to be disabled. All power to shields," Hyun-woo ordered. "Get those supplies to the surface." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The convergence ships attacked in perfect coordination, their movements precise and calculated. They used textbook tactics, standard formations, and optimal weapon configurations. Hyun-woo threw all of that out the window. "Hard left," he shouted, sending his ship spinning in a direction that made no strategic sense. The convergence ships programmed for logical responses took precious seconds to adjust. "Min-soo, can you overload the engines and use the explosion as cover?" "That's completely insane, sir." "Perfect. Do it." As the Steady Hope's engines exploded in a brilliant flash, the ship's supply pods ejected toward the planet. Under cover of the explosion and debris, most of the pods made it through to the surface, but the victory came at a cost. The Steady Hope was crippled, drifting helplessly as the convergence ships closed in. "This is your final warning," came the transmission. "Surrender for processing." Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. They were battered, exhausted, but their eyes still held that spark of defiant humanity that no protocol could touch. "Young Yuna, send a message to all human ships," he ordered. "Tell them what we learned here today. The protocol makes them predictable. They can coordinate perfectly, but they can't adapt to chaos." "And then?" she asked. "Then we show them what human chaos can really do." As if summoned by his words, space around New Busan suddenly filled with light. Dozens of human ships dropped out of hyperspace, not in formation, not following any plan, but responding to a simple human instinct. When one of their own was in trouble, they came running. The ships that arrived weren't military vessels. They were miners from the asteroid belt, traders from the rim worlds, even a passenger liner that had changed course when it heard the distress call. Each ship was different. Each captain made their own decisions about how to fight. The result was beautiful chaos. Some ships attacked head-on. Others used the debris from the Steady Hope as cover. One crazy pilot actually rammed his mining ship into a convergence vessel, shouting human curse words that would probably become legendary. The convergence ships, faced with dozens of completely unpredictable opponents, faltered for the first time in galactic history. Their perfect coordination became a weakness when they couldn't predict what the humans would do next. In the end, The alien ships retreated, but not before sending a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. The human contamination has spread beyond containment, the transmission declared. More aggressive measures are now authorized. On Earth, President Yoon received the message and knew that humanity had just crossed a line from which there could be no return. The galaxy would no longer simply pressure them to conform. Now it would try to make them conform by force. But as reports came in from New Busan, of supplies delivered, of colonists fed, of human pilots laughing and crying and celebrating their impossible victory, Yoon felt something his daughter didn't understand. Hope, chaotic, unpredictable, completely human hope. Captain O'Jamin had been hiding in the shadow of a dead moon for 3 days when he saw the hunting fleet's launch. From the bridge of his stealth ship Shadow Walker, he watched dozens of alien vessels pour out of the staging area like angry insects from a disturbed hive. "Captain," whispered his communications officer, trying to keep the signal as quiet as possible, "I'm picking up their command frequencies. They're calling it Operation Clean Sweep." Jamin felt his stomach drop. After the battle at New Busan, the Galactic Council had declared humanity a galactic pathogen that threatened the stability of civilized space. Now they were moving beyond simple containment. "How many ships?" he asked. "At least 200 that I can count. Mixed fleet, luminary light cruisers, Zekatith dreadnoughts, and some species I don't recognize." Through his binoculars, Jamin could see the fleet's flagship, a massive vessel that seemed to be made of living metal. According to intelligence reports, it belonged to Rakteen of the Silicon Emirates, the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter. The Council had hired him to lead the hunt for human vessels. "Sir, we should warn Earth," suggested his navigator, a young woman named Ko Min-jung. Jamin nodded grimly. "Send a burst transmission to command. Tell them the hunting fleets are moving. Then we follow them and see where they're going." The Shadow Walker was Earth's most advanced reconnaissance ship, designed to be invisible to most alien sensors. It was small, fast, and completely silent when running on minimum power, perfect for the dangerous game of cat and mouse that had become humanity's specialty. As they followed the alien fleet through hyperspace, Jamin thought about how much had changed in just 2 months. After New Busan, human colonies across the galaxy had faced similar blockades. Some had fought. Others had tried to negotiate. A few had actually considered accepting the protocol, but then the first processing ships had arrived. The aliens had started with the smallest, most isolated human settlements. They would surround a colony, disable its defenses, and then deploy teams of protocol specialists. These were aliens who could perform the neural adjustments that would turn humans into harmonized beings. The first processed humans had been a shock to see. They walked and talked like humans, but their eyes were empty. They spoke in the same calm, measured tones as every other protocol species. They showed no emotion, no creativity, no individual personality. They were no longer truly human. "Captain," Ko Min-jung called out, "the fleet is dropping out of hyperspace. Looks like they're heading for the Bright Star system." Jamin's blood went cold. Bright Star was home to New Sol, one of humanity's largest colonies outside Earth. 2 million people lived there, including many families with young children. "Get me a secure channel to New Sol," he ordered. When the connection opened, a familiar face appeared on screen. Colony Governor Nam Soo-jin looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't been sleeping well. "Jamin, thank God, we've been expecting an attack for weeks. Is it finally coming?" 200 ships, Governor. Mixed fleet under Rakuteen's command. They'll be there in 6 hours. Nam Soo-jin closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with grim determination. "We're ready. Admiral Hong has been preparing our defenses." Jamin wished he could feel more confident about their chances. Admiral Hong Jinwoo was one of Earth's best tactical minds, and New Sol had more defensive platforms than any other colony. But 200 ships was an overwhelming force. "There's something else," Jamin said. "I'm picking up strange energy readings from their flagship. It's not just weapons. They're carrying some kind of large-scale neural processing equipment." "What does that mean?" "I think they're planning to process the entire colony at once. Turn everyone into protocol followers without having to fight them one by one." The implications hit both of them at the same time. If the aliens could convert entire human populations quickly and efficiently, the war would be over before it really began. Meanwhile, On a secret research station hidden in an asteroid field, Dr. Kim So-young was making a discovery that would change everything. She had been studying captured protocol technology for weeks, trying to understand how the neural adjustment process worked. Working with her was Dr. Lyra, a refugee from the verdant reaches who had escaped just before her species was harmonized. Lyra looked like a tall, slender tree with silver bark and leaves that glowed softly in the dark. "Show me again," So-young said, studying the scans on her computer screen. Lyra pointed one branch-like arm at the display. "See these neural pathways? They don't just suppress individual thoughts. They redirect mental energy somewhere else. Where? We're not sure yet, but it's consistent across every species we've examined. The protocol doesn't just change behavior. It harvests something from each mind it touches." So-young felt a chill run down her spine. What if it's not just a control system? What if the protocol is alive? Before Lyra could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the research station. On the main screen, red warning lights flashed as sensor readings scrolled past. "Multiple ships approaching," shouted the station's commander, Captain Shin Bora. "They found us!" Through the viewports, they could see sleek alien vessels emerging from hyperspace. These weren't the usual mix of species. These ships all looked identical, smooth, featureless, and somehow hungry. "Those are pure protocol ships," Lyra whispered, her leaves trembling with fear. "They're completely artificial. No organic crew at all." "Evacuation ships are launching," Shin Bora announced over the intercom. "All personnel to escape pods." This is not a drill. As So-young grabbed her research data and ran for the escape pods, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had been discovered not by accident, but because the protocol somehow sensed they were getting close to its secret. On Earth, in the underground bunkers beneath the capital, a very different kind of discovery was taking place. Bae Soo-jin, the youngest person ever to work for Earth Defense Strategy, had been analyzing battle reports from across the galaxy. "Director," she said to her supervisor, "I think I found a pattern." Director Kim looked up from his own work. "What kind of pattern?" "Every time humans fight protocol forces, we win when we act unpredictably. But when we try to use standard military tactics, we lose. It's not about weapons or numbers. It's about chaos versus order." She brought up a holographic display showing dozens of recent battles. "Look at New Busan. Commander Hyun-woo's crazy maneuvers confused them completely. Or the asteroid belt skirmish last week. Captain Yu's decision to hide his ships inside a comet was completely illogical, and it worked perfectly." "What are you suggesting?" "Operation Wildcard," Soo-jin said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Instead of trying to coordinate our forces like a normal military, we do the opposite. We give every ship captain complete freedom to act however they think best. No central command, no standard tactics, no predictable patterns." Director Kim stared at her. "That's insane." "Military forces need coordination to be effective." "Not if your enemy's strength is their ability to predict and counter coordination," Soo-jin replied. "What if chaos is actually our weapon?" At that moment, emergency broadcasts from New Seoul began arriving. The alien fleet had reached the colony, and Admiral Hong's conventional defenses were being systematically destroyed. "Sir," Soo-jin said quietly, "we're about to lose 2 million people unless we try something different." Director Kim looked at the tactical displays showing New Seoul's failing defenses, then at the young woman whose crazy idea might be their only hope. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Operation Wildcard is now active. All human ships are released from standard command structure. Every captain acts on their own judgment. Across human space, from the outer rim to the inner colonies, ship captains received the same message. Fight however you think best. Trust your instincts. Be human." The results were immediate and spectacular. At New Seoul, civilian ships suddenly joined the battle alongside military vessels. A garbage hauler rammed a protocol cruiser. A passenger liner used its cargo bays to launch improvised missiles. A luxury yacht, piloted by a wealthy businessman with no military training, somehow managed to disable 2 alien fighters using nothing but his ship's decorative laser light show. The protocol forces, programmed to respond to logical military tactics, found themselves facing pure human madness. Their perfect coordination became a weakness when they couldn't predict what their enemies would do next. But the real shock came when Dr. So-young's escape pod was picked up by a human rescue ship. As she shared her research with Earth Command, The true scope of humanity's situation became clear. The protocol isn't just a government system, she reported. It's a parasitic intelligence that feeds on mental energy. And it's dying because it's consumed almost every source of diverse thought in the galaxy. What does that mean for us? Asked Director Kim. It means humanity isn't just fighting for our freedom, So Young replied. We're fighting for the survival of consciousness itself. We may be the last free minds in the galaxy. Admiral Namgite stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy that looked like a spreading infection. Red zones marked areas where the protocol had complete control. Yellow zones showed ongoing conflicts. The few remaining blue zones, free human space, were shrinking every day. Operation Wildcard is working, reported his aide, Lieutenant Park Jiwoo. Our casualty rates have dropped 60% since we stopped using coordinated tactics. The aliens can't predict our moves anymore. Nam nodded, but his expression remained grim. That's good news for individual battles. But we're still losing the war. Every day more colonies fall to protocol processing. How many free humans are left? Best estimate? Maybe 50 million across all colonies. Earth's population of 8 billion is still secure, but for how long? Through the reinforced windows of the command center, Nam could see the construction of massive defense platforms around Earth. Hundreds of ships moved in chaotic patterns around the planet. Not because they were confused, but because unpredictability had become humanity's greatest defense. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Shin Bora was putting Operation Wildcard to its ultimate test. Her ship, the Dancing Flame, was leading a rescue mission to the Harmony Station, where protocol forces were holding thousands of captured humans. Remember, she told her crew over the intercom, we don't have a plan because plans are predictable. We have an objective, get our people out. How we do it is up to each of you. Her navigation officer, Ensign Lee Taemin, looked nervous. Captain, shouldn't we at least coordinate our approach? Nope, Bora said cheerfully. You see an opportunity, you take it. You have an idea, you try it. The crazier the better. As they approached Harmony Station, they found it guarded by a perfectly organized defensive formation. Protocol ships hung in space like a three-dimensional chessboard, each positioned to provide optimal covering fire for the others. It's beautiful, whispered the weapons officer, Chief Petty Officer Han Yun-seo. And completely logical, which means it has weaknesses, Bora replied. Logic always has weaknesses. It assumes your enemy will be logical too. What happened next became legendary in human military history. Instead of attacking the formation, the Dancing Flame flew straight through it at maximum speed, weaving between the alien ships like a drunken comet. The protocol vessels, programmed to respond to threats, tried to track her movement but couldn't fire without hitting each other. While the aliens were still trying to figure out what Bora was doing, her crew launched their own individual attacks. The engineer used the ship's repair drones as improvised missiles. The communications officer jammed alien frequencies by broadcasting human music at full volume. The cook somehow managed to turn the food replicators into a weapon that launched frozen hamburgers at enemy sensors. It shouldn't have worked. By every rule of military science, it was madness. It worked perfectly. The rescue operation that followed was even more chaotic. Human crew members improvised, argued, changed plans mid-mission, and generally behaved like the beautifully disorganized humans they were. The protocol forces, expecting coordinated assault teams, instead faced individuals acting on pure instinct and creativity. When the Dancing Flame finally escaped with 3,000 rescued humans, the aliens were left staring at the tactical recordings, trying to understand what had just happened. Meanwhile, Yoon Ji-won was having her own revolution. The president's daughter had spent weeks traveling to colonies that still had mixed populations. Humans living alongside aliens who hadn't fully embraced the protocol yet. On the mining world of Red Rock, she met with a group of crystalline builders who were resisting protocol conversion. Their leader, a being called Sharp Edge, vibrated with anxiety. The protocol agents come every day, Sharp Edge transmitted through harmonic frequencies. They say we will be happier without individual thoughts. Some of our people are beginning to listen. Ji-won looked around at the crystalline community. Each building was unique, reflecting the personality and creativity of its builder. Under the protocol, she knew they would all build identical, efficient structures. What do you miss most about the old galaxy? She asked. The arguments, Sharp Edge replied immediately. We used to argue for days about the best way to shape crystal. the most beautiful angles for our homes. The young ones thought we were foolish. But now, when I see the harmonized worlds where everyone agrees about everything, I miss our beautiful disagreements. This gave Jiwan an idea that would change the course of the war. What if we could remind other species what they've lost? She asked. What if we could show them what they were before the protocol? She began organizing something unprecedented. A resistance network of non-harmonized aliens. On dozens of worlds, small groups of beings who still retained fragments of their original nature began to meet in secret. They shared memories of what their species had been like before harmony. The movement grew slowly at first, then faster as more aliens began to remember what they had lost. On the waterworld of Deep Tide, a young artist named Flowing Storm created a sculpture that broke all protocol guidelines. It was chaotic, emotional, and completely individual. When the protocol agents came to arrest her, hundreds of her people surrounded her in protection. On the crystal world of Sharp Light, the builders began creating houses that were deliberately different from each other. When protocol forces tried to force them back into standardized construction, they discovered that creativity, once awakened, was hard to suppress. But the protocol was learning too. Dr. Kim So-young, now working from a mobile research lab hidden in an asteroid field, made a terrifying discovery. The protocol entity is adapting, she reported to Earth Command. It's studying our tactics and trying to incorporate unpredictability into its own forces. On her screens, she showed recordings of recent battles where protocol ships had begun using random movement patterns and unexpected tactics. It's learning to be chaotic. If it succeeds, we'll lose our only advantage. Admiral Nam felt a cold fear settle in his stomach. How long before it fully adapts? Based on current learning rates? Maybe 6 months. Then we need to end this war in 6 months, Nam decided. Before it learns to out-chaos us. The solution came from an unexpected source. Captain O. Jamin, still operating his stealth ship in enemy territory, intercepted a protocol transmission that made his blood run cold. Earth targeting confirmed. The message read, "Final solution approved. Deploy consciousness harvester." When he reported this to Earth Command, the implications became clear. The protocol wasn't just planning to process Earth's 8 billion humans. It was planning to drain the mental energy of every human on the planet in one massive operation. How long do we have? Admiral Nam asked. The harvester ship is already moving, Jamin replied. It's the size of a small moon and it's heading straight for Earth. Estimated arrival 72 hours. In the silence that followed, everyone in the command center understood that humanity had reached its final moment. They could run, scattered to the far corners of the galaxy and maybe survive as refugees. Or they could make their stand here, at humanity's birth world, and face the protocol's ultimate weapon. President Yoon made the decision that defined humanity's future. We don't run, he announced to the entire planet. We don't hide. We show the galaxy what happens when you threaten human home. As preparation began for Earth's final battle, Dr. So-young made one last discovery that gave her hope. Deep in the protocol's intercepted communication, she found something that looked like desperation. It's not just adapting to us, she realized. It's struggling. Our chaos is poisoning it. Every time humans act unpredictably, every time we refuse to be harmonized, we're damaging its core programming. What does that mean? Asked Director Kim. It means we don't just have to survive the final battle, So-young replied, her eyes blazing with determination. We have to be so chaotic, so completely human that we overload the protocol completely. And if we can't, then the last free minds in the galaxy die with us. As Earth's defenders prepared for the most important battle in human history, one thought echoed in every human mind. They would not go quietly into the perfect, empty silence of harmony. They would go down fighting, arguing, improvising, and being magnificently, catastrophically human until the very end. The consciousness harvester appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark moon made of metal and malice. Captain Park Dong-hyuk, now commanding the Defense Fleet's communications hub, felt his breath catch as the massive ship came into view on the main screen. "How big is that thing?" asked his new communications officer, a young woman named Song Hye-jin. "Bigger than our largest city," Dong-hyuk replied grimly. "And it's designed for one purpose, to drain the minds of 8 billion humans in a single operation." Around Earth, humanity's last fleet waited in deliberate chaos. No formation, No coordinated battle plan, no predictable tactics. Just thousands of ships scattered through space like seeds thrown by a careless farmer. Each captain had been given the same simple order: protect Earth by being human. President Yoon stood in the planetary command center, watching the alien ship approach. His daughter Jiwon was beside him, having returned from her work with the alien resistance networks. Her efforts had sparked rebellions on dozens of worlds, but those victories seemed small compared to the threat now bearing down on their home. "Dad," Jiwon said quietly, "I need to tell you something. The resistance groups I've been working with, they're coming." "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, new contacts began appearing on the tactical displays. Ships from across the galaxy were dropping out of hyperspace near Earth, but these weren't human vessels. "Sir," reported Admiral Nam's aide, "we're receiving communications from everyone. Crystalline builders, deep-tide artists, verdant reach refugees, Silicon Empire rebels. They're all here." Through the command center's speakers came a cacophony of alien voices, each speaking in their own language but carrying the same message. "We remember. We choose freedom." Sharp Edge, the crystalline builder leader, transmitted directly to President Yoon. "Human friend, your people showed us what we lost. Now we fight to get it back." It was the first time in galactic history that different species had chosen to fight together, not for conquest or resources, but for the simple right to be themselves. But the protocol had its own surprises. As the consciousness harvester moved deeper into the solar system, it began deploying smaller ships, thousands of them, each one identical and moving in perfect formation. But these weren't ordinary protocol vessels. "Dear God," whispered Dr. Kim So-young from her mobile lab. "Those ships are crewed by processed humans." On the screens, they could see human figures moving with the same empty precision as other protocol species. These were people from captured colonies, their minds drained and reprogrammed to serve the entity that had enslaved them. "It's trying to break our spirit," Admiral Nam realized, "making us fight our own people." The first clashes were heartbreaking. Human pilots found themselves facing opponents who looked human, spoke human languages, but moved and thought like machines. The processed humans used perfect tactics, flawless coordination, and utterly predictable strategies. They also had no imagination, no ability to adapt, and no understanding of the chaotic creativity that made humanity dangerous. Captain Shin Bora, leading a squadron of mining ships converted to fighters, found herself facing a formation of processed human vessels. "Listen up, people," she broadcast to her pilots. "Those may look like humans, but they're not anymore. The real humans are still trapped inside. Our job is to remind them what they're missing." What followed was the strangest battle in military history. Instead of simply attacking, Bora's pilots began broadcasting human music, human laughter, human arguments, and human dreams directly at the enemy ships. They flew in patterns that spelled out words of love and hope. They performed maneuvers that served no tactical purpose except to express pure human joy. The processed humans should have ignored the chaotic signals. Instead, some of them began to hesitate. Dr. So-young, monitoring the battle from her lab, saw what was happening on her instruments. "The broadcast signals are causing neural interference in the processed humans," she reported excitedly. "Their original personalities are trying to break through." "Can we amplify it?" asked Director Kim. "Not just amplify it," So-young replied, her mind racing. "We can turn it into a weapon. If we broadcast pure human consciousness directly at the harvester ship," she turned to Captain Dong Hyuk, "I need you to open a channel to every human on Earth. Not just the military, everyone. Every man, woman, and child on the planet." "What are you planning?" "Something completely insane," So-young grinned. "Something no logical being would ever try." As the consciousness harvester moved closer to Earth, preparing to begin its terrible work, Dr. So-young activated her plan. Across the planet, every communication device turned on at once. Every human was connected to a single massive network. "This is Dr. Kim So-young," her voice echoed in every home, every bunker, every shelter on Earth. "The aliens want to steal our thoughts, our dreams, our humanity. They think consciousness is something that can be harvested like grain." The harvester ship, now in Earth's orbit, began to extend massive energy collectors toward the planet. "They're wrong," So-young continued. "Consciousness isn't something you take. It's something you share. So right now I want every human on Earth to think the most human thoughts you can. Remember what makes you laugh. Think about the people you love. Argue with your neighbors. Dream impossible dreams. Be chaotic, be contradictory, be beautifully, magnificently human. What happened next had never occurred in galactic history. 8 billion human minds, linked together but maintaining their individual personalities, began broadcasting their thoughts directly into space. The chaos was indescribable. Billions of different dreams, fears, hopes, arguments, jokes, songs, and memories all flowing together in a stream of pure human consciousness. The protocol entity, expecting to drain ordered, harmonized thoughts, instead found itself flooded with chaotic mental energy that it couldn't process or control. The consciousness harvester, designed to siphon predictable neural patterns, began to shake and spark as contradictory human thoughts overloaded its systems. "It's working," shouted Song Hee-jin from her communication station. "The harvester is destabilizing." But the real miracle was happening throughout the galaxy. The stream of human consciousness, amplified by Earth's communication networks, was reaching every protocol-controlled world. Harmonized aliens who hadn't had an individual thought in decades suddenly found their minds flooded with human memories of choice, creativity, and chaos. On the water world of Deep Tide, harmonized artists suddenly remembered what it felt like to create something unique. On the crystal worlds, builders began constructing houses that reflected their own personalities instead of standard patterns. The protocol entity, its consciousness spread across the galaxy through its network of harmonized minds, found itself under attack from within. Every alien that began to remember their individuality was like a virus in its system. Chancellor Velthara, standing in the crystal halls of Nexus Prime, felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. For just a moment, she wondered if perfect harmony was worth the price they had paid. That moment of doubt spread like wildfire through the protocol. Network Hive Queen Zektith found herself questioning whether efficiency was more important than the beautiful chaos of individual thought. Across the galaxy, harmonized beings began to remember what they had been before the protocol stole their minds. The consciousness harvester, unable to process the storm of chaotic thoughts pouring into it, began to tear itself apart. Explosions ripped through its hull as its systems overloaded. But the protocol entity made one final, desperate attempt to save itself. It began to withdraw all its consciousness from the harvester, preparing to abandon the ship and retreat deeper into the galactic network. Dr. So-Young saw what was happening. "It's trying to escape. If it gets away, it will just try again." That's when President Yoon made the most human decision in galactic history. "Open a channel to the entire galaxy," he ordered. When the connection was established, his voice reached every world, every ship, every harmonized mind in civilized space. "My name is Yoon Tae-ho, President of Earth and representative of humanity," he began. "For 50 years you've watched us. You've seen our wars, our arguments, our beautiful chaos. You offered us harmony, and we refused." The protocol entity, struggling to maintain control over its network, tried to cut the transmission, but human signals were chaotic, unpredictable, impossible to completely block. "We refused because we knew something you forgot," Yoon continued. "Life isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about making mistakes and learning from them. It's about disagreeing with each other and still choosing to care." Across the galaxy, harmonized beings felt something stirring in their minds, memories of emotions they thought were gone forever. "The protocol promised you peace," Yoon said, "but what it gave you was death. Death of creativity, death of love, death of the very things that make existence worthwhile." The consciousness harvester exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking the protocol entity's last hope of immediate victory with it. "But it's not too late," Yoon finished. "You can choose to remember. You can choose to be yourselves again. You can choose chaos over harmony, life over death, hope over despair." In the silence that followed, something miraculous happened.